Hello, everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of Knowledge, a KWS by Yuva. Today, we have another interview guest who's I can say as my brother figure, Manoj Sangany, who I've got the privilege of knowing through MMC, a Mindful Men's Club. A little backstory about MMC or Mindful Men's Club. Mindful Men's Club was created by a group of close friends who saw there is a increasing trend of suicides among guys, among men, and in UK. So they felt that men should have a safe to be themselves and value their mental health. I think I should leave it to Manoj to say more about MMC. Manoj, welcome to KWS by Yuva.
Thank you so much, Yuvraj, for inviting me. I think you've given a very succinct introduction to Mindful Men's Club. Just to add to that, just to keep it for full transparency and honesty, and that's the way I like to keep it real and raw for anybody who knows me, is that I myself suffered from an extremity of mental health. On the spectrum, you have anxiety on one end, and on the other end, you have individuals who are either going through suicidal thoughts or unfortunately have gone through with that and taken their lives. So 6.5 years ago, that was nearly me. I'm pleased to say I'm here. I didn't go down that route, but I was thinking about that.
Yeah.
So everything that we share, as Yuvi said, it's a private space. It's not recorded. The audience is worldwide and predominantly South Asian men, but we do have men from other backgrounds and ethnicity. The next session is called The Relationship Balance, and the details will be on the Mindful Men's Club Facebook page. Check that out if you're interested. It's open to anyone. It's free, no charge at all. That was on 21st of October, but I'm sure Yuvi will drop the details on the comments after this.
Oh yes, I hope it's not too late for me to say thank you so much for giving me a warm welcome to this exclusive safe ground for men to vent out the frustration or stress or vent out the basically what's running their mind. I'm proud to say I'm the only member from the Southeast Asian region because mostly of the members are from Europe and America. So I'm the only one from Asia. I think maybe because of that, I have a special place among brothers. I think I can call all of you as my brothers because I do look at you as my brothers as well. And yeah, and also a big a big thanks to Viraj because it's only to Viraj that I got to know about all of you and also about MMC. Thank you again.
Yeah, thank you. No, it's definitely very much a family, and I think anybody who has experience will feel the energy when they come into the virtual room. I'll let people make their own judgment on that.
Yeah. Before I forget, Manoj is also a certified energy coach. Energy is quite interesting. I was quite intrigued with the word energy because when you see about coaching, for example, it's quite common to hear like happiness coach or health coach or like business coach, but energy coach that's quite interesting. So that's quite gravitate me to assume more because like, I find it quite interesting and I'm eager to learn more about energy from your designation as an energy coach.
Mm. Yeah, for sure. So if I do a quick introduction, would that be okay?
Sure, bro.
As you've mentioned, I'm one of the founding members with some very good friends of mine for Mindful Men's Club. It's a registered charity now, I'm proud to say, and we've been going for more than 4 years. We've done about 75 talks to date.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also an energy coach, and a lot of people know me prior to Mindful Men's Club as an energy coach. So what I mean is I believe strongly that everything in life is energy, frequency, and vibration, and I apply a holistic view. So, for example, if somebody says, Manoj, I'm having a challenge with my career, business, relationship, or life, not comment or do anything with that work without two things, which is time and energy, which are both the most precious things. And neither of those can you get that back. That's why I've molded my mentoring and coaching to energy coach because everything is energy. If you think about it, if you break it down, you're giving me energy, I'm vibing off your energy, I'm giving it back to you.
Yeah.
If I don't give you my energy, but I give you time, and I am, for example, on the phone, busy, that's disrespecting your energy. So I'm giving you my time, but I'm not giving you my energy. I like to equate it to time over energy equals presence in mind. If I give somebody my time and energy, then that to me is the definition of being present in the moment and presence in mind.
I love the way you explain about energy because even when you say about time and energy, I think Jay Shetty have mentioned in one of his genius coaching as well. He mentioned about time and energy. I think it's on the second session, the very second live that he made about time and energy. He said about, okay, the example, okay, let's see if you want to talk to someone I already allocated half an hour a coffee with my friend, for example. But throughout the half an hour, I wasn't looking at my friend. I was just digging my phone. So although I had the time designated for my friend, the 30 minutes for my friend, energy wise, I wasn't there because my presence was
Hmm.
fully on the phone. I find it really astonishing and fine. I truly agree 100% with what you say about time and energy, because time and energy goes hand in hand. Yeah, I do agree with you, bro. So, bro, I think you are the right person for me to ask this question. According to you, bro, what is energy and why is energy important to our lives?
Great question. So energy, from a science perspective, everything is energy, right? So our body requires energy to move,
Mm-hmm.
brain requires energy to think, and the neurons in our brains require
Yep.
a form of energy. Food is energy. Knowledge is energy. Not
Yep.
many people talk about knowledge as energy.
Yes.
So everything we consume is energy, and everything we expel it is energy. And the beautiful thing about energy, you probably heard this because it's quite written about,
Mm-hmm.
energy cannot be destroyed. It can only be transferred,
Transport.
and transcend time. Energy is really universal, and it's a beautiful thing. I think once you break down energy and you realize that if we give each of the 8 billion souls on this small blue planet our time and energy, life would be a really beautiful place. I think very few people understand the concept of energy in parallel with time. Once you break it down and understand that the two most expensive things in life is your time and energy, because neither
Mm-hmm.
can you give that back. So you should
Yeah.
choose wisely to whom and how you give your time and energy. That's the way I like to meditate, my own internal mantra when I'm speaking to people, whether I'm speaking to a business client, personal friend, family member. I think there's no point in life going one foot in and one foot behind. Time can be there, but energy is trailing. Or energy is there. I think they have to be in equal balance.
Thank you for mentioning that. Energy is basically everything around us, and most importantly, energy can't be destroyed. It can only be transferred. But at the basis, energy is always around us. Just that it it can change shape and form according to the environment.
For sure. If you think about two people entering a room, before somebody even speaks a word, the energy speaks before they speak.
Mm-hmm.
People are very into spirituality, but I've got to be careful we don't go down a tangent. But if you, for example, somebody's aura around them, that's
Yep.
another name for energy, can speak volume. There could be silence in the room, but the way they carry themselves, the way they open the door for somebody, be courteous, you can tell if they're empathetic, if they're a sensitive soul, if they're a kind soul, always unveils itself before words are spoken. That's the way I like to approach it as well.
I remember a very interesting speech by a monk who's also a motivational talker, Dandapani, who mentioned about energy vampire. I was like, wow, energy vampire. That's the first time I heard the term and the energy vampire. So he went on to explain it. Okay, sometimes when you talk to certain people, like you feel like after you end up talking to the particular person, you feel like more anxiety, you feel like you go on with your day and everything positive. But certain people, after you end up talking, even just for 5 minutes, you feel like your energy is being drained, you feel depleted, you feel tired, you feel, oh man, like I feel so exhausting. It's just so exhausting talking to this guy or this person. Yeah, I just want to ask you, I want to ask you more about this energy vampire things. What is actually energy vampire, and
Mhm.
how do we protect ourselves from these energy vampires?
Yeah, very good question. I think energy vampires, if somebody's experienced it, it's not a nice thing. For example, let's break it down. Energy, just explain the framework a little bit. If you think about humans, right, entering
Mhm.
a room, let's say a conversation, whether it's virtual or in
Yes.
person, I think
Mhm.
there's about 8 hours difference between us. It feels like we're in the
Yes.
same room.
Yep.
That's a good energy,
Yes.
because I'm feeding off your energy.
Yep.
Humans have the innate ability to speak lies, because as soon as your lips open, you have the ability and capability to speak a lie. The beautiful thing about energy doesn't lie.
Mhm.
Because if you think about a animal can pick up a scent, and they're like a dog, for
Yeah.
example, or a cat, and they can always tell. Have you noticed certain animals gravitate to certain humans
Yes.
because they're feeding off that energy, as well as their natural ability
Yeah.
to sense whether it's flight or flight, harmful situation or not. So I think energy is a beautiful thing. And I think energy vampires, like you've said, the definition of that is somebody who drains you, somebody who sucks your energy. Everybody's heard the term fill your own cup. So if you imagine a cup of water, and if you imagine that cup of water has tiny, minute holes in it, every time you walk around the room, you've spoken to one person. That person has filled the cup
Yeah.
because that's positive energy. But you might speak to two, three people who are, let's say, speaking about something that is not raising the consciousness of that individual,
Yes.
and they are
Mm-hmm.
gossiping, or they're
Mm-hmm.
talking something negative, for
Yeah.
example, or they are using judgmental opinions and conversations or belittling someone. That is definitely something on someone, an experience that's going to be draining to you. So if you imagine that hole getting bigger and bigger, you're going to leak your energy. So you're going to have energy leakage. And that's why it's really important to know who you're talking to.
Mm-hmm.
Do they basically operate on your energy, frequency, and vibration? They have to be on your frequency, just like a radio station. You might be Magic FM, I might be Kiss FM. Therefore, if we're not tuned into each other's frequency, we won't be able to communicate effectively.
Correct.
Just like a child may not understand an adult, and an adult may not understand a child. The sense they are on the same wavelength, their frequency is aligned.
Mm-hmm.
The vibration you give off. If you give off a negative vibration or a positive vibration, that's going to either bring us together or distance us apart. So
Mm-hmm.
I think energy vampires, you have to be really careful of. They can be anyone. They can be your family. They can be your
Yeah.
friends. They can be your colleagues. They
Yeah.
can be your clients, and they can be anyone. So I think that's how I would explain energy vampires. Your question was, how do you protect yourself? There's many ways you can protect yourself. And one of the ways for those on the spiritual path, they would understand the terminology of grounding your energy. So basically, before you enter a room, you ground your energy through a meditation, a visualization, and a
Mm-hmm.
manifestation of how you want that to happen. If I'm entering a room, I don't want to be affected by an energy vampire. I can ground myself before entering that room. Conventional wisdom will call it intuition. Everyday society might say, I have a good BS detector. I think you should use your intuition and form an opinion whether this conversation is going to be raising my consciousness or lowering my consciousness. If it's going to lower my consciousness,
Mm-hmm.
higher probabilities it's going to be in the narrative of an energy vampire or vampires. The challenge with that is, if you don't discard that energy,
Mm-hmm.
you'll carry that energy back home
Yeah.
in your business and career. And
Mm-hmm.
then subconsciously, it would spill out to everyone around you. So that's the
Yeah.
danger of being around energy vampires. And you can tell because, like you said, you'll be low, somebody with really uplifting,
Yeah.
who's supporting from the heart, who wants to see you flourish in life, will leave you with a high energy frequency and vibration. So there's a big spectrum of one end to the other. You can tell
Yeah.
straight away.
Yeah, but then, bro, like just now when you mentioned that energy vampire could be anyone, even your close family members. This vampire doesn't suck the blood from your neck, but this suck it sucks energy from you. So just to give a little context about that. Now, going back to my question earlier about energy vampire could be anyone, it could be even a family member. Some of them could be quite tricky in how they speak because like, they play with your emotion in a way. Because although you know that this particular person is sucking the energy, sucking the life out of me, but let's say when we started to move away, realizing that person is actually an energy vampire, they start to know melodramatic, they'll start to get emotional, they react in a way to make us feel guilty to move away from them, and that will cause us to stick to them, continuously to stick to them, and continuously being drained by them. So yeah, that so how do we deal with this kind of things, bro? Yeah.
Mhm. I think it's important to categorize your individual situation and the individual relationship with that family member because every dynamic is completely different. For example, if it's a first family member, like your cousin, parent, or sibling, for example, that's obviously a lot closer dynamic, right? By
Yeah.
definition. It may not be closer relationship, but closer by birthright.
Yes.
So you have to decide that, is it a one-off situation?
Mm-hmm.
And does that individual have the emotional intelligence, meaning do they have the self-realization to take on feedback? And if they have the ability and capability to take on constructive feedback, not in this situation, obviously, because it can get argumentative, but after, let's say, a 24-hour, 48 grace period, for example, and you can say,
Yes.
oh, by the way, I was there for you, but just want to let you know now the situation's resolved,
Mm-hmm.
or a couple of days later, this is how it made me feel. What do you think? Don't be prescribing things to any individual. Ask them for emotive questions and answers as a response. If there's a repeat of that cycle and they're not willing to take the feedback on, that means they are almost like leeches, right? They're latching onto you, like you've described,
Mhm.
and they don't want to let go. And they're bringing you into their narrative, into their world. You may feel like it's a hamster wheel going round. You have to be careful to recognize the signs of narcissism, because a
Yes.
narcissist will manipulate the situation to their betterment, not your betterment,
Mhm.
and will make you feel that they're very tricky individuals to deal with. But you
Yes.
can always tell somebody who's narcissistic behavior because
Mhm.
the word control comes to mind.
Yes.
But if somebody likes to be in control of every situation or the center of every situation, for
Mhm.
example, that is attributes and signs of narcissism. And there's
Mhm.
different depths of narcissism. So you have to be careful, really,
Yeah.
from an energy vampire to somebody who's willing to change, not willing to change. Ask yourself why.
Mhm.
Even if they're a family member, you have to protect yourself still. Okay. There's no discrimination. Energy has no discrimination, whether you're a colleague, business, or family member. It will either consume or give you something. So you have to
Yes.
choose wisely who you give your time and energy to. You can still be respectful to your family member,
Mhm.
but it doesn't mean you have to do everything with that family member. If you're doing an activity or hobby that lights you up, gives you immense inner joy, and then every time you do the same activity with
Yes.
a family member who's an energy vampire,
Mhm.
why would you choose to continue that activity with that individual? You're not disowning them as a family member, but you're
Mhm.
choosing to spend your time and energy wisely. There's a
Yeah.
difference. There's a subtle shift.
Thank you for sharing that, bro. I think many people will definitely find it useful because many people out there are stuck in a situation where the person within their family happens to be an energy vampire. So that could definitely guide them to how to deal with them, at the same time do not offend them as well, offend their family member who happen to be an energy vampire as well. Bro, I do have another question though. It's like from my own personal experience. My parents and my close relatives used to tell me, Yuva, whenever you want to do something auspicious or something good, please don't tell it forward. Please don't tell it ahead of time. The reason is that we might not know what kind of people we are portraying this news to, and we do not know what's their mental state, and we don't know what's their energy state. If the news reaches the person which have some negative energy towards us, or they are negative link towards us, they will resort to cursing, or they will say that okay, this thing should not happen. So it's like a fear that if you say something auspicious before time, before it happened, there's a high possibility that thing will not materialize. I just want to ask you, bro, is it true
Mhm.
according to energy?
That's a really interesting question. I'm thinking about my mom now because my mom has some superstitions in the Hindu religion. Broadly speaking, under the umbrella of Asian culture, there
Mm,
is a lot of sayings, rituals, and obviously somebody has to make their own decision which ones they think are true, which ones they think they're false. But I think it's a known thing with South Asians in our culture
mm,
that
yes.
if you say something in the context you're giving, if it's news that is very good news, conventional wisdom will say you don't want to jinx it. If you say it too many times or you say it too early, as you said,
Mm,
you don't want to jeopardize the outcome. Now, there's two schools of thought. Energy has no discrimination. So
mm,
if you give energy into a fixed mindset,
mhm,
which is that it's going to be
mm,
negative,
mhm.
you will attract that. If
Okay.
you give energy, okay, let's say energy starts from the line in the middle. With good intention, let's use my mom an example. My mom is being very protective and loving and saying, Manoj, please don't share this news too early
Mm,
or because it might actually not come true. Actually, that's coming from love, but it's coming from a fixed mindset.
yes.
If I choose myself to carry that wave of positivity and say that, no, this will come true. I will get this job. I will get this pay rise. I will get this new business client.
Mhm,
I will meet the partner of my dreams, for example, whatever that is. I'm actually coming from a growth mindset. So I think how you choose and where you give your energy can dictate the actual outcome.
mhm.
It's like they say, energy flows where the mind goes,
Yes.
right? So if your mind goes, let's say, towards, I'm a bit worried, then you're bringing up what feeling, what emotion? Anxiety,
Anxiety.
which on the mental health spectrum is the first sign of mental health and stress, right? It's anxiety.
Mm,
And it's not possible you can go through this lifetime without going through some form of anxiety,
mm,
which is normal. But if you dwell on that and hold on to that, and the outcome is not a desired outcome, then the byproduct is not only did the outcome didn't go the way you wanted, you've left yourself extremely stressed
Yes.
and you're beating yourself up. So if you give me a choice any day, I'd rather be the optimist than the pessimist because
Mm.
my energy, like the universal law, whether people believe it or not, I strongly do,
Yeah.
is what you think is what you attract, but you have to take action as well. You can't just wish things like some
Correct.
people think watching The Secret and, oh,
Yeah.
I'm going to manifest £1 million.
Exactly.
But
Yeah.
you have to have a sequence of moves in life. So, what is your sequence of moves? Just like a chessboard, how can you strategically place your life piece to
Mm-hmm.
make sure you get one step closer to whatever their goal is in life,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's relationship, career, business, or whatever it is. So, I think that's how I like to explain things.
So what I'm hearing from you is, bro, you can have a wish or like a dream or a goal, but it doesn't mean anything if you don't follow up with appropriate action to achieve the goal.
For
Right.
sure, you can't go into a theta state, which is the dream state. When you go into a dream state,
Mm-hmm.
our subconscious mind is playing, not a conscious mind. And you can't dream that I've won the lottery or dream
Mm-hmm.
that I'm going to get this job or dream I'm going to get this business. It's what actions are you going to take? And even if you take the actions, it doesn't guarantee you're going to get there, right? Because
Yeah.
if you look at business, they say 80 to 85% of businesses fail in the first year.
Mhm.
And after year three, it's not a
Yeah.
positive stat as well. It comes back to how are you going to spend your energy? Are you going to spend it on overcoming obstacles,
Mm-hmm.
overcoming challenges
Yep.
by consuming knowledge
Yes.
and turning that knowledge into wisdom? Because wisdom is not wisdom unless knowledge is shared through lived experience. Wisdom cannot be wisdom unless it's knowledge
Mm-hmm.
that's shared. But how it's shared is important. It has to be shared through your own lived experience because then you have some foundational context to
Yeah.
base whatever it is you're giving, whether it's advice or conversation or
Yeah.
being a sounding board.
Thank you, bro, for mentioning knowledge and wisdom, because that is the purpose of this podcast. Knowledge worth sharing by Yuva, or you can say KWS by Yuva in short. The purpose of this podcast is to share knowledge to many people out there so that they can debunk the wrong understanding or the myth which is going out there, and to share the actual truth on certain happening or things or truths about life. So I think you have mentioned it beautifully there, and thank you for sharing that. But since you mentioned the wishes and also action, I remember saying from a wise man who told me, opinion without action is just a dream. Action without an opinion is a waste of time. But opinion with an action creates success. So I find it really true.
I think the word opinion is very subjective, isn't it? Because
Yeah.
everybody has an opinion,
Mm.
but where is that opinion coming from? Is it coming from a place of betterment to your fellow soul, human? Or is it coming from a place of belittlement because you have a void in your life? So I
Mm.
think everyone has an opinion, but I think
Yeah.
those who are speaking from the heart and wanting Yuvraj to flourish in life, that's
Mm.
an opinion you're going to listen to, right? Most likely. Then it comes to what's the action needed. Everything, energy is action, right? Energy doesn't stay still. It's constantly moving, taking metamorphosis, changing shape. It's constantly extracting, detracting. Without action, nothing can exist. That's a
Yeah.
universal truth for sure.
Yeah, I remember in my previous interview with Coach Pauline, who is a master trainer of NLP, who mentioned NLP is about reprogramming the language you say in your mind. We have a negative narrative running in your mind. Although you're doing an action which seems positive, it will not go far because you have this negative narrative running in your mind. So first you have to deal with that first. You have to change the narrative in your mind to become a positive one and align it with the effort that you're doing to ensure success.
Absolutely. If you think about your consciousness, not your conscious mind, because
Mm.
that's your logical mind,
Yes.
but subconsciously, if you haven't dealt with that trauma or healing
Yes.
or negative statement that you've told yourself or that's been a generational thing that's passed down.
Mm.
Let's give a real example to your audience. So let's say you're trying to get from X earnings to Y earnings. Your parents have come from a place of scarcity, not because they're bad people, but because they've always been saving all their lives. Don't spend money on this. Don't spend money. That's coming from a scarcity mindset. Okay,
Yeah.
let's break it down like specifically.
Yeah.
But if you're taking positive action to grow a business or grow your career earnings, but
Mm-hmm.
you haven't dealt with that subconscious narrative,
Yep.
then, like you said, you haven't adopted neuro-linguistic programming. You haven't adopted that change of narrative, because what you think is what you believe,
Mm-hmm.
and what you believe is what you do, and what you
Mm-hmm.
do is who you become. So
Yeah.
it's all linked. It's like a thread. So if you want to change who you become, then change what you do. If you want to change what you do in reverse order, then change what you believe. If you want to change what you believe, then change what you think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when you mentioned that, I remember in one of my discourse, Bhagavad Gita, where we learn about thought flow action, which is from Vasana, thought, desire, action. Vasana is like your inherent nature. Your inherent nature creates the thoughts in your mind, and the thoughts creates the desire in yourself, which eventually propel the action that you do. So it just suddenly just pop up in my mind when you mention all these things.
It's like that saying you must have heard. In life, I'm quite blessed where I volunteer at the Bhaktivedanta Manor ISKCON in London. Is I'm surrounded by many monks, some amazing displays of humility and wisdom. And I think the saying that was mentioned in one of the classes that I took a while back is from a very wise monk: always nurture your nature. I've heard that so many times, but I never really understood it
Mm-hmm.
until I really reflect on a gift.
Yeah.
Call it, it's not really your passion, because passion can fade, right? So whatever is your natural ability, whether you believe it's God-given or self-created,
Mm-hmm.
that's probably a conversation for another time. But I think everyone has a natural ability and a gift. If you fine-tune that gift to flourish, why would you not nurture your natural nature? For
Yeah.
example, you're good at debunking myths and distributing that wisdom through this podcast and through your life coaching. That's your natural ability. That's
Yeah.
what sets your soul on fire. That's what makes you smile, right, in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
So why would you not continue to develop that further and go
Yeah.
deeper into that? So I think if you're not good at something, the business saying is outsource it. The wise man doesn't dwell on it. If learning a skill set is going to help you and others grow, and it's part of your plan in life, then adopt it, learn it wherever it is. I'm absolutely rubbish at Excel. I'd happily admit it. So I outsource that, and it bores me. If you ask me to do something creative, because I
Mm-hmm.
used to draw art
Yeah.
or solve a business problem, I'll gravitate towards certain things that are in my natural ability and realm of things that I do well, and I don't need to think about it. I think everyone has that gift. I've met some really gifted people throughout
Mm-hmm.
my lifetime, and I've seen some children who can just draw effortlessly, and they're talking to
Yeah.
me, but they're drawing. It's
Yes.
it's like brushing their teeth. It comes such in a natural way. It's beautiful
Yeah.
to watch, right? Or
Yes.
somebody who's a music composer playing an instrument, and
Yeah.
you think, oh, I wish I could play an instrument like that.
Mm.
But you can play the instrument of your life. You just have to understand which instrument it is and which is your
Yeah.
gift. I think that's the thing, right? Most
Yeah.
people go in life not knowing what their gift is,
Mm-hmm.
which is a shame. Most people know what their gift is and don't do anything with it. I think that's a bigger tragedy.
Yeah. Very true. If you find your inherent nature and learn to nurture it, so that you can achieve whatever dreams or goals you have in life. So it's like nurture and nature. We will dig more into this further later, a bit further into the podcast. But right now, I want to ask you about mental health, because yesterday was World Mental Health Day. Thank you for mentioning this to me off camera. I do have this interesting observation, because if we see in the previous generation, towards boomers and also the generation after boomers, there seems not to be much emphasis on mental health or maintaining a good mental health, but the mental health issues seems to be a more pertaining issues, come more prominent, especially in the start of 21st century. So I just wonder, does mental health issues, stress, depression, does it not exist in the previous generation, or did you ignore it? And why does only now mental health becomes gets its own prominence in
Mm.
this? Yeah.
Interesting question. I think mental health has always existed because your mind has always been there. Your consciousness has always been there, just like your physical health has always been there. I think through generations, in society likes to systemize things and label things,
Yeah.
right? Let's just put that out there. If you think about where we came from, for example, from Homo sapiens and the evolution of man,
Mm-hmm.
you didn't talk about these things because you were more worried about getting food on the table,
Correct.
catching your
Yes.
meal,
Yeah.
whether that was plant-based or meat-based. You're worried
Yes.
about providing basic necessities like heat, fire, and shelter.
Yeah.
So you just got on with it. And then as
Yeah.
time went, I think this is my own narrative and thinking, you put me on the spot, which is what I like. And then you think about generations. My mum never talked about mental health because she just got on with it. My dad definitely didn't talk about mental health. So
Mm-hmm.
therefore, I didn't know about mental health, what it even is growing up. In my generation, it wasn't discussed in school. In my children's lifetime now, in their school, earlier, it's actually talked about. The reason it's talked about, coming back to your original question, is because it's become a massive global epidemic. You are depressed? Okay, I'll put you on antidepressants.
Mm.
I've got friends who have shared something very personal to me that when they go on antidepressants, it's very difficult to come off. When you go on antidepressants, your
Mm.
low that's here, okay, antidepressants like a sticky plaster. I'm going to be
Mm.
very sensitive with my words. It
Mm.
has some uses, but it's like a sticky plaster. It may raise your low from the original low, but as
Mm.
soon as you come off it and you reveal what's really going on,
Yeah.
then the low becomes lower than your original low, which makes it
Yeah.
very difficult,
Yeah.
worse, to come off it. But when you do come off it, then your system begins to heal from inside. So, for
Yeah.
example, your body, your immune system doesn't need that chemical in it
Mm-hmm.
to give you that joy, peace, and happiness because you're opening your toolbox
Yeah.
and you're saying, oh, I'm going to chant, for example, because it gives me peace. Or I'm going to go for walks amongst nature because it gives me peace. Or I'm going to be a creative storyteller through my self journaling because it gives me clarity and peace and release. So I think this is an amazing podcast because everything's about knowledge and wisdom. What works for you will not work for me. What works
Yeah.
for me may not work for you. So I think
Yeah.
we're all learning of each other. And I think
Yes.
mental health is something that has always existed. It's been forgotten in previous generations because it was a topic that never was actually even talked about. So therefore, it wasn't an issue because the issue wasn't surfaced through courage, through some brave souls who shared their story. You hear so many celebrities who are coming out now, so many footballers, Bollywood stars, singers, Hollywood
Yeah.
and Bollywood are coming out with their stories. What that's doing is putting the magnifying glass on something that already existed from
Mm-hmm.
day one, but it wasn't never packaged and labeled as a mental health and put on a
Mm-hmm.
shelf
Yeah.
because now it becomes like a stigma.
Yeah.
For example, I'm very public about my journey because I already shared it. Yesterday, I shared a post on my LinkedIn
Mm-hmm.
about my personal mental health journey.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a few people who said, oh, you're very brave. You've got a lot of courage doing this. And I'm like, why live through life wearing a mask? Some people say it's easier said than done, but is it? Once you take off that mask and who you are online and offline is the same person, that's such a relief. Trust me, I'm talking from experience.
Mm-hmm.
Like the same Manoj you're talking to now, whether it's in mindfulness club, whether you meet me in person, hopefully we'll make that happen one day. I think life is just too beautiful to wear masks. You should just take your mask off. I think mental health, unfortunately, is a very serious epidemic. It's
Mm-hmm.
still going to continue and spiral out of control based on where you are in society,
Mm-hmm.
meaning what access you have to knowledge, what access you have to whether it's therapy, different types of mechanisms and tools and techniques, and where you live in the country, in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Let's be honest, if you've got shelter, if you've got food on the table, if you've got clothes on your back, you're the top 1%. Let's be honest, you are already the top 1% of the population
Mm-hmm.
because so many people are living in poverty. So you think they are thinking about mental health? No, because
Mm-hmm.
their priority is food,
Yeah.
water,
Yes.
shelter, clothes, heat. It's always been there. I think the scary thing for me personally, this is my personal opinion,
Mm-hmm.
full disclaimer,
Okay.
is that before you look outside to going through doctors, therapists, whoever, and they're all beautiful souls, try to do something inside first. Just try. Just
Mm-hmm.
take a step. Because I think sometimes we're too quick to be prescribed things like tablets, injections, things like that. It's
Mm-hmm.
not needed. It all has its place. But I think
Yeah.
just try to, like I said, whether it's playing music, whether it's drawing, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
going for a walk, whether it's gym,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's martial arts, whether it's dancing, whether it's singing, writing poetry, just channel your energy and time into something that makes you happy, gives you inner joy and peace. That itself will raise and improve your mental health. It may not address everything because everyone's mental health is very different.
Yeah.
To deep depression, which is what I personally went through.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm nobody special, trust me. So if I've come out of it, I'm pretty sure everybody else can come out of it with the right support system, the right tools, techniques,
Mm-hmm.
and just the right knowledge of knowing that if I have a bad day, which I do sometimes, I can dip in and pick this one item that serves me and adopt it and use it in my life. It's like a toolbox. You just pick the tools that work for you. And the ones that don't work for you, just leave it in there because there'll be a time where you need that specific tool. Just like a hammer has its place, like a screwdriver has its place. So every tool is for a different situation in your life. That's the way I like to describe it.
I, lo- I love it, bro. I just simply love the way you explain it. You see the toolbox, the analogy of a toolbox, and then saying that when you take antidepressant, it's just masking a problem, actually solving a problem. Yeah, it's just beautiful. I think I have to listen to this recording again just to relearn what you have mentioned now, bro. So thank you I'm truly grateful.
Thank you for asking thought-provoking questions.
Yeah. A little follow up to the previous question. The previous generation, the boomers, do not really talk about mental health. Only now, in my generation, and the Gen Zs, they have the flexibility to openly speak about mental health. Unfortunately, some boomers, they have this negative perception towards talking about mental health because they do not do it during their time. And when they see someone else doing, saying, "Oh yeah, I'm depressed, I'm stressed," they start to coin the term, "Oh, you're weak, you are a snowflake, you are the strawberry generation." So how do we deal with this understanding between the generation, especially when you're talking about mental health?
Mhm. I think the word trust comes to mind, right? I don't think it's their fault. I'll be honest with you. It's really scary. Like, let's be honest and real. To share your story,
Mm.
not everyone needs to share their story, but I think everyone has a story in them. I believe that with every ounce of being in me. But
Mm.
once you share your story, it takes tremendous courage to share your story
Yeah.
because you have a fear of being judged, being labeled. It might be the detriment to your career if you share it. Somebody will say, I don't want to hire somebody with mental health issues, for example. I was told by
Mhm.
my family and friends
Mhm.
that I was really crazy to share my story online on LinkedIn.
Mhm. Mhm.
The first Mindful Men's Club video, for a fun fact, is actually
Yes.
unscripted and is on my downloadable assets. Me and my good friends did our first ever video. Lots of ums, buts, maybes, because we were very green, very new to this, and very honest and real. We didn't know what we were doing because we were all
Mhm.
going through a mental health journey at that time. Now, if we didn't share that then, we wouldn't be having this conversation now.
Yes.
So I think sometimes sharing your story in the right circumstance, with the right audience, with the right people, it could be one person. It can be a global audience.
Yeah.
Medium, which you feel comfortable with, is so important. But coming back to original point, it's not their fault because it takes a lot of courage. Can you imagine how much courage it takes to share your story for the first time? You didn't wake up one day saying, I'm going to share my story. I definitely didn't wake up one day saying, I'm going to share my story, Manoj.
Yeah.
It's like you marinate on the thought.
So,
You think about it daily and then you think, how will people treat me? How will I be judged? But then when you strip all that false narrative away and you realize that life is not about having that false filter. You'd rather know who your friends and family are.
mhm.
You'd rather know who you can trust early on. And if it's to the detriment of your mental health because you're imploding by not talking about it,
Mhm.
then actually the best thing you can prescribe yourself is to talk about it. When you talk about it, you are sharing a chapter of your story. You don't need to share your full story.
Mhm.
You can be selective and share one chapter at a time, depending on what you feel comfortable with at your pace. And I think once you share that, the beautiful thing is you start to heal from inside out.
Yes. I do agree with you when you say that selective sharing plays an important role. You don't share everything about your life to everyone, right? There are certain select people you share this much, and you share more to people. As you mentioned earlier, it's based on trust. It's based on trust. As if you trust this certain individual more, you say more. But if you don't trust that person, you just share just as much the person need to know about you. You want how much the person know about you, so you just share this much. I totally agree with what you say about that, bro. Thank you. Yep.
Yeah, no, if you think about friendships, there's different depths of friendships. If you were to take a pen and paper all audience was to do this exercise, I guarantee you there'll be different levels and depths of friendships. They will say this person's name, he or she is a peripheral friend. They're just there. Like when they need something, they contact me once a blue moon. We all have those.
Yes.
Then if you draw a circle, then the circle becomes slightly smaller. Then you have friends where you may have a infrequent conversation with, but it's like you left it from yesterday. So you don't need to speak to your friends every day. That's beautiful. Where you have friends where you may not speak every day, but when you do speak, it's like you carried it on from that moment.
Yeah.
That's like more of a real, honest friendship. And then you have friends who have your back without you knowing. So they could be saying a prayer without you knowing. They could be doing things, positive actions with other friends to say, look, you look after this person. He probably needs a bit of help or a bit of encouragement. So I think there's different depths of friendship as well, isn't there? And I think
Yes.
trust is based on how close you are with the person you're potentially going to share. You have to choose really carefully because you can share something and feel so discouraged by sharing. Again, the danger is you can change your personality based on a negative outcome because you have a fear of not sharing again, and then you spiral. So I think there's good people with good intentions and bad people with bad intentions, like you mentioned earlier about the energy vampires. But which seesaw do you want to be on? And depending on which seesaw you are, that's how balanced your life is. So if you hang around with positive people, the seesaw is going to be higher. That child that's elevated high up, if you like. I'm using that child narrative because I'm a big kid at heart. So I'm remembering what it feels like to be on a seesaw for a split second there. But
Yes, bro. In the lingo among millennials and Gen Zs, there's a thing called TMI, which means too much information. So you're not supposed to share too much. We are not supposed to share everything about our life to everyone. And that's the thing I noticed on social media because some people, they treat their Facebook or their Twitter like their diaries. They update whatever happening in their life, they update social media posts. So yeah, I think there's a thing called too much information. So you should be able to be wise enough to choose what to share and what not to share, to whom you share.
if we think about the timeline of evolution, before social media existed, we had mobile phones. Growing up, I didn't have a mobile phone. That would be probably a shock to my boys thinking, what would life be without a mobile phone? It was beautiful because before a mobile phone, we were having real conversations and we rode on our bicycles and we were playing cricket and football on the streets. I think if you think about social media, it's just a medium, but it's not actually your natural medium. Your natural medium is this.
Yes.
It is having a one-to-one conversation or one-to-many conversation. And that is your natural medium of communication. Social media has its pros and cons. A lot of cons is you can be sucked into the falsehood of life that people project, especially on Instagram, Instagram life and real life. Where Facebook, I'm not choosing, by the way, a specific medium can be good, whether it's LinkedIn, because if it gets you a job or you get headhunted, then it has served its purpose. It's just a tool, nothing more, nothing less. How you choose to use it is completely up to you. And I love when people have a detox. They come off it like a week, a day, or 6 months. Some people get itchy fingers and they come back on it. Some people quit it, and I know people who are not even on social media, and I think that's amazing because you don't even know what you're missing, but you don't even know what you're not missing, if that makes sense. It has its pros and cons.
Yeah, bro. Another wise man saying that when there's a mishap, don't blame the tool. Blame the person who used the tool. For example, a tool, a knife, for example. A knife at the hand of a good person, they use it to cut vegetable or to cut food and all that. But at the hand of a criminal, they use it to harm or kill people. So the same tool can be used to destroy or to save people.
Social media has been known to expel myths and propaganda that has been catalyst to start wars. That's the extreme, right? That's really bad.
Yeah.
Or grooming, right? Like a lot of pedophiles. So again, it's like anything, right? It's what are you doing with it? It's like when people say money is evil. Money is not evil. The energy you give money has good or bad intention.
Yes.
So it's the same thing. It's a tool. It's a medium. I think sometimes it's good to have a detox. I stopped watching the news probably about 15, 16 years ago. So when people say what's happened, I don't unless you tell me. And I can guarantee you there's a WhatsApp group that someone's going to tell me what's happening in the world. I don't need to watch BBC News because the percent is all negative.
Yes.
Why would I bring my consciousness down? Now, it doesn't mean I'm oblivious to what's happening in the world, because it's not possible. You go to someone's house or a meeting where there's not a TV, mobile phone, or WhatsApp group, that somebody will tell you something, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're always aware
Mm-hmm.
of the essential information. What you consume is what you are and what you
Yes.
become, and the actions you do. Watching certain things like that can also be a trigger for your mental health.
It's like you should control what you consume, because what you consume can affect how you think or how you act and all that. So yes, I truly agree with
Yeah, your body will react in a certain way, positive and negatively, to the choice of food that you eat, whether it's nutritional based or non-nutritional based and
you.
chemical based. And if it's processed, I think I don't have to educate the audience. 99%, it's bad. It's actually 99.99%. It's
Mm-hmm.
bad for you because all the goodness is taken out. It's the same with thoughts and who you hang around with. You're still consuming that energy. You're still consuming those thoughts, whether it's physical consumption or mental consumption. You have to
Mm-hmm.
choose wisely what you
Yeah.
consume. And like they say, you are 6 degrees of separation, right? So you're a
Yes.
product of your environment and who you hang around with. So if you want to know who you are, how well you're doing, and the state of your mental health, just look around who your friends and family are.
Yeah.
That's a bit of a reality check.
Yeah. Very true. So, bro, now we come to the next phase of the podcast where I was trying to make a bridge between both of our coaching expertise, because both of us are coaches. For me, my coaching niche is on bullying. I can say that bullying exists when there's an imbalance of power between the bully and the victim. When you're talking about power, is also a form of energy, right? So we can also say that there's an imbalance of energy between bully and the victim. To go further into this, the disposition of energy, or you could say a mental disposition, comes in two groups, which is aggressive and passive, and they have good and bad. So when you intertwine these two groups between aggressive, passive, good and bad, so we have four groups, which is aggressive good, aggressive bad, passive good, and passive bad. Passive bad is when people are born into a bad environment and they grew up to become a bad person because they've been born and grew up and growing up into in a bad environment. Aggressive good is they happen to grow in a good environment and they realize they have to act on it, which is the best among the four. Aggressive bad is the one of the it's like all the bullies and criminals are there because they are bad and they wanted to do, and the action reflects their bad nature. Commonly, aggressive bad will normally harm the passive good, because which is the fourth category. The passive good is born in a good environment, but they choose not to act on it. They choose to be passive, to be sedentary, not to act, just minding your own business. And normally, these are the group which are normally become the victim, and the aggressive bad becomes the inflictor of damage towards the on the passive good. So I just want to know your opinion on this about energy and bullying.
I think energy and bullying, I publicly shared this already on my LinkedIn. I've actually been bullied through the corporate world. Most grown up men don't talk about being bullied by other men. It happened to me. I had to go down the HR route, etc. And obviously won't mention specific details, but that was very traumatic
Mm-hmm.
because I was thinking, me being mentally bullied, like really? Like I never experienced this. I never thought I'd be the one. A victim never thinks that they're a victim until they're a victim.
Mm-hmm.
That example was somebody misusing their hierarchy and their energy and consciously bullying an individual. I think that is a shift of energy balance, right? The second you challenge that individual,
Mm-hmm.
you can reclaim that energy back. Unfortunately, it's common in schools that at
Yes.
some point somebody will get bullied at one point or the other, right?
Mm.
Sometimes you can't do anything about it because of size difference or because it's not in your nature to fight back. There's nothing wrong
Yeah.
with that because
Mm-hmm.
you'd rather not have arguments. The danger with that is that a bully will always be a bully because to them, it's an easy thing to do because they know anything, whether that's a parental thing, generational thing, like you said, is systemic because they got bullied. So it's passed down that trauma.
Yeah.
But The second you hold a mirror to a bully and you show them the reflection, that usually, not always, usually shifts a certain behavior in them. And then the second you continue to challenge it, then you'll find that actually you'll break that pattern of bullying, because bullying, most bullies like easy victims. When you become a victim that has strength, both mental and physical, whether you describe that as courage to speak out or to do something, then you challenge the status quo, then you're holding a mirror to them. And it's like having a repellent. You're using your energy to shift their energy, because you're actually scaring them now, because they're thinking, oh, this person never used to fight back. Why is he or she challenging me now? I better move on to the next victim. You have to break the cycle and the generational traits of bullying. Unfortunately, even a bully was a victim at some stage, right? Not always, but in most cases, a bully was a victim at some stage, whether it's through abusive parents or abusive upbringing, or they got bullied when they were younger and they've not processed that trauma and they're not healed through it. And the only thing they know is to project that anger outwards to an individual or individuals. That's a pattern that needs to be broken, right? Because bullying can destroy lives, and it has
Yeah.
destroyed lives, and it has led people to take their lives, which is really tragic.
Thank you for sharing that, bro. And yeah, it's like as I mentioned earlier, like, that there's imbalance of energy when there's bullying occurs, and bully when they were young, they were also a victim of another bully. So it's like a vicious cycle going on here. Bully, victim, victim, bully. So it's like a vicious cycle, no, bro. Yeah. So I'm just wondering, bro. It's like, what can we do to stop this vicious cycle? Is there something the bully or the victim must do to restore the balance of energy between these two group of people?
I think raise awareness is a big thing. I have a family member, right, was bullied in school.
Mm-hmm.
So I was absolutely really angry, disappointed, hurt, thinking, what's going on? And obviously it hurts. Everything hurts when it's closer to home, right? As they say. And the first thing is report it, whatever it is, whether it's in adult life or child life. You have to raise awareness. Okay. Because if you don't raise awareness, that thought is going to be like a tiny little droplet of snow that turn into what's called a snowball effect. It's going to get bigger
Yeah.
and bigger. And once it has nowhere to go, it will implode inside you.
Yes.
You've heard that terminology. Either you explode or you
Yeah.
implode.
Yeah.
And if you don't speak out, it'll implode and affect your mental health. It could lead to tragic circumstances of somebody taking their life, and it's happened before. Raise awareness is the
Raise
number one
awareness.
thing. In my situation, I would raise awareness. Second, I would challenge it in a way that it's not dangerous or detrimental to your physical health. If you can challenge the bully, sometimes that challenge is enough to send a minor shockwave to say, I'm not going to be a victim. I'm not going to be a
Mm.
victim to bully. I'm
Yeah.
putting my hand up. I'm saying no.
Yeah.
If that doesn't work, you have to take it to another level, whatever that means
Yes.
to you, because it's such a tailored question to a tailored situation, to a tailored circumstance, that one
Yeah.
thing does not work across all. I think raising awareness, challenging the situation to make sure that you're breaking not just your pattern of bullying, but also you're breaking that systemic cycle of bullying for that actual bully, will enable that person, not guarantee, but will enable that person to change. Because if they see
Yeah.
too many mirrors being held up, we don't like holding mirrors up to a life because it's a shock, right?
Yes.
If you look at yourself in the mirror thinking, I can't lie to, the only person you can't lie to is the person in the mirror. So when you hold a mirror up to the bully, it's like a reality check. In fact, most of my friends in school were victims of bullies where I stepped in to challenge the bully. That's how most of my friends are my friends from
Okay.
school, which makes
Mm.
me sad to share it. But unfortunately, that was the environment that we were growing up with, and that was
Mhm.
the type of schooling that we were in.
Yeah. So you mentioned a three interesting step, which is raise awareness, and then come up to the bully, go up front to the bully.
In a way that's not detrimental to your health, basically.
Yeah, and the third one is go a level higher. Like you should raise your level, go beyond the victim mentality, elevate yourself mentally, elevate your mentality to see the situation of being a victim. Yeah.
So not just mentally raise your consciousness, but also when I say level, like all types of levels, whether that's mentally raising your consciousness or physically learning self-defense because it's life or death situation, whether it's domestic abuse or something, contacting the police because if it's abuse, obviously you need to go down certain
Yeah.
because if it's life threatening, and to raise your mental consciousness, you can also do it through spiritual consciousness as well. So they go hand in hand.
Yeah.
Every situation is different, but raising awareness, challenging the status quo, holding a mirror up to yourself and to that bully, making sure that you don't become a lifelong victim of bullying,
Yeah.
and you have the power and you reclaim that power back to take action, to take that positive action of change.
Yeah.
That's when you get your strength back, I would say.
Yes. Yeah, and I think the worst thing that a bully victim can do is to remain as a doormat. Once you become a doormat, you are in a bad situation, but you choose not to do it because, like, you in a way surrender and accepts you being a victim and you not do anything about it. That's the worst thing a victim can do, right?
Mm. But it's not always that cut and dry, because something we talked about off camera is about Stockholm syndrome, right? Sometimes the victim, as weird and hard as it may be to hear for your audience, is that the victim can learn to love the abuser.
Yeah.
They've been systematically programmed to make them believe that it's normal, and they're not the abuser, they're the savior. Now, that's probably a topic for
Yeah.
a different conversation, but I think there's different depths of why people don't choose to take action. It could be fear, it could be that they're in that cycle, that they don't see that they're in the cycle. So sometimes bullying is not obvious, because
Yes.
you have verbal bullies, you have non-verbal bullies, physical bullying, non-physical bullying, and there's different depths and different layers of bullying. And I think sometimes you can be a victim and not know you're a victim. So, for example, you can be in a friend circle
Mm-hmm.
and be bullied into a certain outcome without you knowing, because you falsely think that this person is my friend.
Mm-hmm.
That can happen, right? Whether it's paying for the meal every time, a one-sided conversation where you're giving them energy, but they're not giving you energy. That's not mutual investment in a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's different depths. Yeah. It's a tragic thing, unfortunately. It's a sad thing. And I think, yeah, raising awareness, taking action, challenging the status quo is at least a start.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing all this interesting knowledge about energy and bullying. Bro, I don't want to take too much of your time, but there is one more thing that I want to decipher with you. It's about man's mental health. Because up to recently, the image of alpha male being projected through movies, through songs, through writings, through books. And yeah, I find it quite detrimental to men, because not all male let's break it down. Let's be obvious. Everyone can become alpha male. Um, because I think the it's quite interesting when Justin Baldoni, the person who acted, a person who is a director and who wrote the book Man Enough. He mentioned in the book that a man doesn't need to be an alpha male, and that's okay. A man can cry, and that's okay. So a man predominantly are just a human being. They do have emotions. They bleed. They cry. They get stressed. We are not robots, so we do have feelings. But due to this projected image of alpha male, certain males, if they go out and say, "Oh, I'm depressed. I'm emotionally disturbed," some might say, "You're not man enough." Yeah. Oh, you are a disgrace to the entire man community, to the entire male community. So I would just want to, bro. I just want to have your take on this, bro.
Yeah, sure.
The term on male toxicity. Yeah.
Mm. Another great question and a great topic to unravel. The term not man enough, or in football,
Mm-hmm.
people used to say that is so derogatory. In a sporting environment, in jest, fair enough, but there's a fine line. Words can be really harmful and toxic. Surrounded by other alpha males, you feel like you don't want to say anything, because if you say anything, you will be considered weak or
Yeah.
inferior, or whatever you want to choose to
Mm-hmm.
describe it. And I
Mm-hmm.
think it's quite sad, because I grew up watching X-Men, right? So I used to fantasize about having certain superpowers. And then I realized through a lot of meditation and self-reflection that the biggest superpower that I have, and every one of you guys have out there, is your vulnerability. You've heard that
Absolutely.
terminology. Vulnerability is a superpower.
Yes.
And I think once you actually break that cycle and say, I'm not comfortable with this man up or manning up. I'm like, I'm just a normal guy. I'm a human, for
Mm-hmm.
example. Like you said, I cry when I'm sad. I laugh when I'm happy.
Yeah,
I'm joyful when I do something that serves me, right? And I think going back to the energy reference, we all have, and this is a fact, we all have masculine and female energy in us.
interesting. Yes.
Yeah, we all have it. We've done a topic about that a while back on Mindful Men's Club. So we all have
Yeah.
masculine and female energy. I'll give you a real example. What
Yes.
happens when a male loses the mother and has a child? That male has to step in to the feminine energy
Mm.
and become the mother to that child.
Wow.
If you flip it around, it can be the mother that has a child and loses the husband. That mother has no choice.
Yeah.
And I've got friends in these circumstances, so I'm talking from actual real experience.
Mm.
These people have to step into that role as a father.
Mm.
So therefore, they're tapping into their masculine energy in order to do that. Masculine and female energy coexist in everyone. I think society has carved us out to say men are X, Y, and Z, and female are X, Y, and Z. In some cases, it's quite positive where the bridge is being drawn closer, but
Mm.
there's a lot of stereotypes, unfortunately, against women. It doesn't mean that if you're a woman or a man, you can't do a certain job. That's a really shockingly narrow minded viewpoint that some men have. For example, in certain boardroom talks, they say
Yes.
stuffy old middle aged CEOs who have
Mm.
a old mentality of it needs to be a boys' club.
Mm.
How are you going to promote diverse thinking if you're just going to promote the
Mm.
same kind of people? So I think it's a big topic, but I think there's so many ways we can go into this
Yeah,
conversation.
maybe we could have another podcast on this, especially about toxic masculinity. We can have another podcast to go further into this and how we can deal with it. But that will be a topic of another podcast.
No, no problem.
We are talking many serious stuff, but I just want to share a little bit more about Mindful Men's Club because it's a safe ground for males. It's only for men to be open, be vulnerable. It's a place where judgment doesn't exist. Everyone is supportive. We listen and we support everyone there. And yeah, sometimes it can get too serious. Sometimes it can get quite jovial because it's just a personal observation because you are like trying to maintain the balance of the energy in the room, but then some people try to create a silly joke and disrupt the whole thing. It's nice people having banters with each other. Man, if you want to know more about this group, the details of the group will be shared along with this cast as well. So yeah, say that.
No, for sure. I think you've summed up nicely. Look, it's a real conversation with real men talking about real life challenges and being real. Sometimes we cry, sometimes we laugh. One thing we don't do is we never point fingers and we never judge. And actually, we've met quite a few times. Unfortunately, you're 8 hours away in the exotic location,
Mm.
so we would be away. But when we have socials, it's like another depth of closeness. And many of the men have described us as being family and brothers, like you said. So it's definitely a safe space for sure. It's nothing to do with business. It's completely free, and we're a charity because each of us went through a journey of mental health ourselves. I would love to see some new faces, some younger faces as well, to get a different viewpoint. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
But it's open to all men 18 and above. To your female audience who are listening, we unpack the conversation live on our Facebook. Women have a male figure in their life that either they are feeling challenged by mental health or the female in that situation is impacted as well. They want to signpost them. It's quite a few topics actually that I get DM'd and the team get DM'd saying, Manoj, can you talk about this, but don't mention my name? Is not
Mm-hmm.
just from men. It's actually from females who have male
Mm.
figures in their life going through that challenge. So it's quite interesting. The dynamic is
Yeah.
a different mix.
Okay, bros. I think we have talked quite elaborately about energy, masculinity, bullying, and energy, and also mental health. So let's end this podcast on a very jovial mood. For all my podcast interview guests, we do a little quick fire round. So it's basically I ask you a question, a series of questions where you choose one answer and you don't have to justify your answer. Just say the answer as it is. For example, it's say A or B. So you just say A. So it's just right. So are
I
you
I feel I feel I'm taking a multiple choice life. question, but I'm absolutely fine with this. And I think I did say off camera, I prefer, yeah, hit me, hit me. I'm
Okay.
scared what I might say, but hit me.
Okay, so let's start our quick fire round. The first question is, which one do you prefer? Manoj the coach or Manoj the corporate guy?
Manoj the coach for sure.
Okay, thank you. Number two, energy or corporate?
Energy.
Number three, being witty or being balanced? Oh, okay. You just answer every question without any hesitation. Nice. Next question, football. Manchester United or Liverpool?
That's easy. Liverpool. It's going to be split. You put the two opposite teams together. My brother-in-law is United. My
Okay.
sister-in-law's Arsenal,
Hmm?
and I think the rest are all Liverpool. So we have interesting debates.
Yeah, I'm a Red Devil fan, so I can.
I know that's why it was a loaded question. That's why you fell off your chair.
So yeah, I think we come to the end of our quick fire round. You answered every question calmly and hesitation. For that, thank you so much, and thank you for everything that you shared in this podcast. I think I learned a lot just by asking you the questions, and I believe the audience will learn a whole lot more by listening and re-listening because there's so much to unpack. It's for the audience to learn and create a new understanding based on what they've learned to the podcast. Because I find this podcast not just entertaining but also education as well. So, Manoj, thank you for being in the podcast and thank you so much.
No, I just want to say thank you, Yubraj, for inviting me as a guest speaker, and thank you so much for creating this platform
Mhm.
and sharing this knowledge with your audience. Maybe who knows, we might do a sequel, might do a part two
Oh,
if your audience want to hear
oh
us
yes.
again.
Hopefully, bro. Hopefully, bro. So, Manoj, so how the audience can reach you?
I think the best way to, like I said, I'm non-different on social in real life, and you can call me, keep me honest on that. I think LinkedIn, I'm quite active on LinkedIn, so it's just Manoj Sangani. So I'm sure the name will be on the comments.
Mhm.
And well, it's on here, it's on video, right? And also on Facebook, if you want to learn more about the Mindful Men's Club charity, so it's just facebook.com/Mindful Men's Club.
Mhm.
We have a YouTube channel called Mindful Men's Club as well. I think that's enough, Manoj, one day. You can find out
Yeah.
about me through that.
If you did not manage to get to grasp all the links that Manoj says now, don't worry. All the links will be shared along with the podcast video on YouTube and also in the Spotify link as well. Any last parting words to the audience before we end the podcast?
I just think life is too precious and too short. So I think just be that which makes you happy and focus your time and energy on that which serves you, not what you become a slave to. I think I'll end it on that.
Wow, beautiful, lovely. Thank you once again, bro. I think we can now finally end this podcast on a very blissful, jovial, light note. Thank you again, bro.
Thank you.
Take care.